Welcome, everyone. Here we are. The sports writers are here with us. Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino of the Salem News, Nick Kukuru of the Gloucester Times. I'm Bill Newell with MSONewsports.com. And we have a bunch to talk about this week, even though we're in the slow time of the year, I think, for sports writers. You know, I admire you guys on the sports pages, and during the summer, there is, like we mentioned, not a ton going on, but you find some good stuff to pop in there. So this is not the easiest time of the year. It's not just flowing at you like a water pipe or something or other with the outflow. But here we go. So unfortunately, this week we start with some other sad news. About a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Gene DePlacido, Salem News correspondent, who passed away. And we have some more sad news this week with Scott Cooper, who I worked with at WESX. He was actually a great broadcaster, and then went into sports writing and sports reporting. He did a number of things for us on the website here. We always appreciated Scott and his help. Great family and so on. That he passed away. I know he was battling some illnesses, and so it's a pretty sad news. But Phil, I know you were able to kind of share that story with the North Shore over the weekend.
Yeah. We certainly can't claim Scott as our own. Scott left his journalistic imprint on a number of places, as you mentioned, Bill, at ESX. He was at WBZ for a long time, spent some time working at the Item, some of the weeklies. In the last few years, he had worked as a sports stringer for us, mainly doing football, but doing some other games as well. I've certainly known Scott for a long time, just from having had him be around the North Shore sports scene and all. And as we were saying off camera before we began, two things about Scott is he always looked much, much younger than he really was. I mean, he was 63 when he passed, but Scott could have easily passed for 45 years old, if his hair hadn't turned, prematurely white before he got sick or whatnot. And he always had a smile on his face. He always made the best of every situation. Scott never complained. I know there were times that he was struggling and in pain, going through his various ailments. And, he never put attention on himself. He never talked about himself in that way. He was a poor me guy. He just loved being around athletics and talking athletics. And I think, as I tweeted out yesterday, he and I talked a lot more about rock and roll and different books we were reading. We shared books. He loved the old time rock. Well, I shouldn't say old time, but in the past. And he liked it. I liked it, and still kept up with modern stuff. So we talked a lot about that. He would send me like Twitter links to different things, like, oh, it's so and so's birthday. Dee Ramone's birthday today. Like just crazy stuff. Like, okay, Scott, thanks, buddy. And I don't know that many people knew too. He had a job where he got up really early, and he traveled all over the state doing various. I don't know if he was like a topographer or a planner. I'm not sure. He told me once, and I should remember, but I don't. But he went out with like a crew, and they'd go down to like New Bedford at 6 a.m, and then he'd come back and work a game that night if we needed him to, or if he was needed to, and things like that. So Scott was very flexible. Swampscott guy through and through, but he did a great job with Marblehead as well. Of course, he married a Marblehead girl and his wife Whitney, and they had 2 boys. He had a great family, and he had a real passion for what he did. He didn't take himself too seriously, which I think kind of was why so many people enjoyed Scott. He was just a regular guy who loved sports, loved music, loved to be he was honest to himself. He took a lot of pride in, I remember he told me, this was only a couple of years ago, I saw him wearing a brand new t-shirt from the, I think it was the Saints Colts Super Bowl. And that's probably 12 years ago, 15 years ago now. Whatever the Saints won their Super Bowl, it's going to be a while now, right? 15 years maybe?
Yeah, right after Katrina, right? So it was, what was that, 2007, 2008?
The Patriots won it.
44.
The Patriots lost in
Super Bowl
07.
44 was.
That's what it was?
Yeah.
Okay, so 12 years ago then? 13
Okay,
years
so
ago?
a little later than that.
Well, Scott's wearing this T-shirt to a game we were both at in Swampscott, and I said, have you been keeping that like in storage for the last 10, 12 years? He's like, no, I got it for $1 at the I don't know if it's the Army Navy store or something. He's like, I got like 10 T-shirts for $10 or something. He was so proud that like he had gotten this great deal on what he thought was a great shirt. And I still remember, he would wear these like old like hockey jackets, like the puffy starter coats from like 35 years ago. He's like, why would I get rid of it? It's warm, I like it, it looks good. I'd say like, well, yeah, all the above, man, you're right. So Scott was just a good guy, man. He was a really good guy, and he'll be missed.
Yeah, he had a great sense of humor, and he could always turn a phrase. He'd get you going for sure. And when you were at games with him, covering the same game he was at, he was always very helpful, and he was always interested in the kids too, and having them tell their story, which is nice. And I'm trying to think what else I just wanted to say, but yeah, he was a great guy, and like you mentioned, good broadcasters, and really got into the sports writing thing, after his broadcasting days, if you will. So yeah. Scott Cooper. So it's kind of sad, definitely sad. He was a funny guy, and he was a hockey guy too, Phil. That's what I was.
Huge hockey guy, yeah.
Hockey guy through and through.
Skated until he couldn't anymore.
Yeah,
until his body wouldn't let him. Yeah, big hockey guy, but he would do anything that we asked. I mean, there was nothing beneath him. He would do any sport. Always talked to some of the players, got their 2 cents, their feedback, and he's somebody we could always count on, and we will certainly miss him, not only as a reporter, but more importantly as a friend in the business.
You got it.
He was a great follow on Twitter too. Sometimes you'd have to he'd have like he'd use emojis to get his points out there, or like to refer to a certain team. Say it was Salem Witches, he would put a witch emoji up there, like witch stew, So it was kind of funny reading his tweets. Sometimes you'd be like, what's he trying to say here? And you'd have to think about it for a second, and you'd figure it out. But yeah, I always enjoyed seeing him at games and chatting with him. And a very unique guy, and seemed to always be, like you said, Phil, super happy. He was just content with what he was doing, and did it with a smile on his face.
Yeah. All right, let's go around the horn a little bit. We're going to touch in. We got a few things to discuss, promote things coming up at the paper and so on. Nick Kukuru, what's happening up in Gloucester these days? I know you had that bluefin tournament a few weeks ago.
Bluefin blowout. Yeah, I did a youth sailing tournament this weekend, so a whole lot going on over on Cape Ann. I'm going to an ITL game tonight, so that's starting up. But other than that, that's about it in this area. Rockport Townies versus Manchester Mariners tonight. Mariners have a 1-0 series lead. I'm not sure how Hamilton and Raleigh went on the other side of the bracket, but I can always bank on that for a mid-August content. I want to say 38 out of the last 40 years, either the Townies or the Mariners have been in the finals.
Right.
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
And I know the North Shore Baseball League, they're in their semifinals. I think I saw that in the Salem News today as well. But sure, guys will be following that as well in the days ahead here for sure. Nick, you've done a story here you're doing a story on the 18 best golf holes on the North Shore. Maybe you could share that story with our listeners, or part of that story, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Obviously it's biased. It's my take. I haven't played a lot of these courses around the North Shore, and I wouldn't call it the 18 best holes, but it's kind of like a dream 18. That's what we're calling it, the North Shore Dream 18, and picking a different hole from a different course each day. We have exactly 18 papers in August, so we're doing 18 holes, and public and private courses. I'm not doing any more than one hole per course. I think when I tallied it up, there was close to 30 courses in our, region that I could choose from. So it's been tough narrowing it down to 18 really good ones. But yeah, each day is going to be coinciding with that number of holes. So we started off with, hole number 1, and that was at Beverly Country Club. Went on to hole number 2, a second hole somewhere else, and so on. And we've gotten 4 holes in so far. We'll have the 5th one on Wednesday. Just been getting, golf pros at each course's perspective, how best to play the hole, what are some of the hazards on it, what makes it a great hole, whether it's really challenging or unique, or it's just a fun hole to attack and play. These aren't necessarily going to be the #1 handicap or the most challenging hole every time, but just some fun holes, like I said, whether it's got a great view or some unique, today's was myopia, and they got some really unique bunkers on the particular hole that I picked. So yeah, that's been a fun project for sure. Speaking with those golf pros and trying to narrow down my list, and I encourage all the golfers out there to take a look. I'm sure you've probably played a lot of these courses in the area, whether they be the public or the private ones, and we're getting photographers to go out and shoot the hole, kind of get the lay of the land, and yeah, it's been fun so far.
And we should say too that includes the courses on Cape Ann too, up in Cooksway.
Correct. Yep. Well, you can find it in the Gloucester Times and the Newburyport Daily News. They're both going to be running it. We got some courses up, in the greater Newburyport area. We got some courses in the Cape Ann area, and then obviously throughout the North Shore here. So even had one in Lynn the other day.
Nick, I would like to see that story have Nick Giannino play those holes myself. You know what I mean? Here's the first shot, a little graphic where it lands. There's shot 2, shot 3. And if there's more than 3 shots or strokes, put them in. But you know what I'm saying?
Right,
that's what I would say. That's what I would like to see. But,
yeah, play.
Here's what I would ask, Bill. If you, you're a decent golfer. I know you're not scratch or anything, but you're a good golfer.
Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to Nino here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, good.
What do you say? What would be the range of your score if you were to play all 18 of these holes?
Oh man, well, we've only narrowed down, I'd say, about 9 of them so far. So let's say I'm playing 9 holes. I'd want to say aim for par on every hole, but that's a tall task. So I'd go 5 over par, 9 holes. Let's do that. And hey, that hole at Myopia, one of the toughest holes, I'm probably going to highlight. To get par on that hole would be a tall task. So maybe 5 over is generous.
I was going to say that's pretty good. 5 over.
That is very
talking like what, 40-41. That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, well, I've played a lot of these courses before, so at least I know what to hit, and getting the perspective from the pros on how to best play it. You'd like to think you can execute it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I might be being a little bit generous. I play at about a 10 handicap right now, so if I can get somewhere around 40, that'd be I'd take that.
You've always had trouble with the fescue. I know that.
Yeah, the fescue's tough.
It is tough.
tough.
It is tough.
That Myopia course, though, that's a unique course, isn't it, Nick? I haven't played it, but I walked it once. I was doing a feature on one of the golf teams, so I was out on it. But it's a kind of it reminds me of, like, maybe I'm wrong, but like a course you might see over in Scotland or something like that. I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah. Phil mentioned the fescue. There's plenty of that. A ton of bunkers. The greens are really tough. Yeah, that's a special course. I got the chance to play it in high school, 9 holes once, and it ate me alive. So haven't been back since, but I have walked it a few times, covering tournaments and whatnot. I believe Pingree still plays their home matches there, which is quite the treat for those guys. And I think Hamilton Wenham might get a couple matches on there here and there, but yeah, it's a very special course. I mean, it's world renowned. They held U.S. Opens there in the early parts of the 1900s. I think it's too short now to really host any big tournaments, and there's not enough room for the fans. But if you get the chance to play it, yeah, it's a special course. Not many like it.
Yeah,
I always like
public course. Oops, go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, I was gonna say I like getting the roundup scores from. You can always tell when it's a myopia max, like 150 to 140. Then if it's myopia, it's 97, 95.
Oh yeah,
it's way lower.
It's not easy, and you get tempted to hit driver, and then you just get into trouble. So, yeah, that's a tough course for high school golfers, that's for sure.
I was going to ask, Nick, in your opinion, is there a public course in the area that not could be private, but is really well maintained, kind of a step up from the other publics in your opinion, whether it's Beverly Golf and Tennis or Old Salem Greens or the Meadow or anything like that?
I think at times the meadow has been excellent. They've gone through some irrigation issues in recent years, but talking to Peter Cronin earlier today, actually the head pro there, who also coaches the Peabody Golf Course, that course seems to be, with all the water and the rain in July, that's been coming back around. So when that course is in good condition, that matches up to some of them, I'd say, just because it's so challenging and with the elevation and all. So that one's up there. Beverly is in great shape. The course I did from Georgetown, Black Swan, that's in great shape.
I played a Black Swan. That's a nice course.
Yep. Just looking through the list I have here.
Far corner.
Far corners, they always do a great job with the greens there and the fairways there. So you can tell the difference between the public and the private courses for sure, but there are some that you're going to get your bang for your buck on the public courses.
Mm-hmm.
So can you go over to the Salem Country Club? Let's use that as one of our elite courses on the North Shore and say, yeah, I'm Nick Giannino with the Salem News. I'd like to play 18 holes and do a story. Does that work or not?
Are you asking me?
I was asking Nick. I was just asking.
Yeah,
Nick.
yeah.
Okay.
Some of the courses will let me play, or at least let me play the hole,
Yeah.
I think some of the private ones may be a little questionable, but usually they love the press. So happy to have me. And, like I said, I've had the pleasure of playing a lot of these private courses and most of the public ones. Salem's a great one. That'll be on the list for sure. I'm not sure what hole yet, but I did get the chance to play there when the U.S. Senior Open was there back in 2017, and it ate me alive a little bit, much like myopia. Very different than myopia. It's a long course, a lot of shots, a lot of long holes, but that's a great one too. We really, there is so many beautiful courses here on the North Shore. Think of like Kernwood and Tedesco and Turner Hill. I mean, the list goes on.
Nick, would you call Salem long? I mean, I remember when the old timers were here, it was like all these course records were set. So it seemed like it played short, or is that just sort of relative to, pro golfers?
Well, let's see. Salem CC, I believe it's over 7,000 yards, which is pretty lengthy. I'm not sure if the seniors might have played up a tee compared to the pros,
Yeah, it could be.
They don't hit it quite as far, but
I just remember the scores were so low. It was like crazy. It could have been the weather, could have been a lot of factors.
Especially for those guys, it's scoreable. Let me see. The yardage, 6,900. Oh, that's from the 6,900. So just under 7,000. I mean, most of the courses that the pros are playing now on the PGA are up over 7,000 yards. So that's pretty close. I don't think it's the length that really makes it challenging for those guys, though.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Guys are just hitting it so far nowadays, too.
Right.
Even the seniors, they can get it out there.
Well, this has been a good debate here, this golf talk here. But Phil, it's not the big sports debates that are coming up in the pages of the Salem News coming up soon. Yeah. So tell us what you and Matt are working on over there.
Yeah, so we always try to come up with an idea for the summer if we can during these so-called dog days to not only put interesting stuff in the newspaper and on our website, but maybe to kind of get people thinking about the upcoming school sports season that we, starting to practice in 2.5 weeks now. It's coming up quickly. And this year we actually came up with 2 ideas, the one that Nick's doing here with the golf. And as you mentioned, Willie and I are doing something called 8 Great North Shore Sports Debates, where, he and I aren't yelling and screaming at each other here, debating. But
have the Stephen A. Smith first take back and forth.
No, I think I'd rather hit myself in the head with a ball peen hammer than do that. So watch that, emulate that, anything like that. No, he and I just talk about, we came up with a list of topics. What do we have maybe at first, Willie? 15 or 16, and we narrowed it down?
Yeah, probably in that range, I'd say.
Yeah, just things that we hear people talking about, things that we get asked when we're out and about, hot button issues, things that we see in the line of work that we do, and maybe looking ahead to the future and how could this be affected or changed or whatnot. So, we've made, we got them all done now. It's just a matter of putting them together and whatnot. We've done 8 videos for 8 different topics, which we will run starting next Monday. And then so they'll run Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the following week, the same days, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Again, they're topics that should get people talking, should get people thinking. I would think that almost anybody who's interested in this, our sports sections or North Shore sports would have an opinion on each of these 8 issues, and that's what we're hoping for. So we have videos, and we'll have an accompanying writing piece in the newspaper that day. So it's something different, and I think it's come out pretty well so far. We're looking forward to presenting it and seeing what kind of feedback we get. And in our business, it's always good to have people talking about what you're doing. And I think these are things that a lot of people talk about on their own. If you're sitting at a game, with other parents or your buddies, or, you're just whatever, you're involved in high school sports at some level, whether you're a fan or administrator or coach or player or whatnot. Most of these topics can relate to you. And, we think that it'll get some nice discussion going. So that's the goal for us there.
Here's what I'm thinking, Phil, and you should be willing to do this with us here, is why don't you take one of the topics that you didn't use, pull that one out,
Okay.
and we can deal with, we can see what we come up with here. So give us one of those 8 great debates that didn't make the grade 8, if you will. Where's a debate that you think people are talking about, that Matt, you guys have been think is one of the debates that's not going to be in the paper?
Maybe we should call those ones the back 9.
The back 9.
One that we didn't touch on that we had talked about is,
and by the way, Phil, if you want to use it next year, everyone will forget about this podcast by then anyway. So don't worry about it.
I think this is like you can't go to the well too often. You gotta move on to something else next year.
That's what you do, yeah.
Well, we talked about ultimately it wasn't chosen, not because it wasn't a good topic, but just because we felt we had 8 really strong topics in the long run. But you do hear sometimes schools talking about it's a different set of rules for private schools, in terms of they can actively go out and ask athletes, hey, would you like to come to our school? You can come here, you can repeat as a underclassman, get another year, maybe get some exposure for high school, whatnot. So what do the schools that kind of fit under that MIAA banner do to try and combat that and keep the kids that are already at those schools there? It's one that we kicked around for a while. And, full disclosure, we obviously deal with the Pingree School, and we cover their athletes and their teams and whatnot. And they would fit under that private banner, while all the other high schools in our readership area fall under the MIA guidelines. So, I think my opinion, and it might be different for Willie, but that's a choice that each family has to make. It's flattering to be asked to go to another school and play. It might mean that they believe you're good enough to make that jump. It might be you're just filling a spot that they need, that you're a depth piece. The grass isn't always greener. Sometimes it works out great. Sometimes it doesn't work out at all. It's different, I think, for every situation and every family. But that was one that we had talked about doing, but didn't. Anything to add to that, Willie?
Not really. No, I mean, I think it's just different, right? I mean, the rules are different. I think, obviously the MIA has its own rules that have come up in recent weeks with some controversy about repeating years and that kind of stuff. So certainly, the NEPSAC is kind of the Wild West, but it's interesting. I don't remember exactly what the topic was as far as what to debate. If we were saying it was a good thing, or how do the public schools keep the kids, or what, but I think you outlined the differences fairly well, certainly.
That's just one example of one that we had thought of. We did have others. I'm trying to think now. It's been a while now since we solidified our list. So
Well, I probably have this email here someplace. As
Well,
we as we just
while you look for that, Willie, but a
Oh,
school like
here's a
Pingree,
good one. I'm sorry. Here's a good one. That we didn't talk about, or two potentially good ones we didn't talk about. One, what's happened to Saturday afternoon football, and is it partially ruining football that Saturday afternoon isn't really on the table anymore? And another one was, what are some of the best teams to never win a state title? That we didn't quite use those either.
yeah, those are a couple of those are good ones. Yeah, I was just gonna.
I don't know if you want to talk about these topics or just kind of cycle through potential examples.
Well, let me just go back to the Pingree thing, and not so much just Pingree, but Phil and Matt, you and Nick too. They don't, do they draw all of their students from this North Shore area? I didn't think they did necessarily, but you know, we lose North Shore athletes to schools all around New England, right? The privates,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, New
Not to
Hampshire.
single out Pingree,
yeah.
but
So yeah, because kids are bored. I mean,
Right.
they go to New Hampshire, Connecticut.
Yeah.
The day Pingree is a day school, so they really don't have the resources or the the draw of say a Phillips, a Governors. I mean,
right.
those schools are getting students, never mind from all over the country, from all over the world. You got internationals at those schools, businessmen, sons. I mean, everybody knows all about the Bush legacy there at the Phillips. I mean, diplomats, royalty. I mean, you name it. I mean, so, those schools kind of, it's not just athletics, that's for sure. And some of those basketball powers, the Tiltons of the world and stuff like that. I mean, they're getting basketball players from all over the country, right?
Brewster Academy,
Brewster's a good one. Yeah, exactly.
Vermont Academy.
Yeah,
but Pingree, I would say the majority of their kids come from the North Shore, but it's not exclusive too. I mean, there are kids from Winchester there.
North of Boston, I would say, because they'll get
yeah.
some from the, they get a lot from the Andover area, North Andover, Southern New Hampshire. I would say primarily north of Boston, I would say.
That would make sense. Yeah. Well, I guess we have a couple minutes. You want it? Let me just pick up. So what's your take on the Saturday football? I mean, how did that fit into the piece here? Because right now you have Hamilton Wenham with Saturday football and Beverly with Saturday football, and not a lot of other schools with Saturday football. I'm sure I'm missing someone.
St. John's Prep once in a while. I mean, they have the option.
That's true.
They play Saturday games.
They could, but they don't have to. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I love Saturday football. It's maybe for me as a traditionalist, it's what I grew up on. I think it's great to go, especially on. I mean, I love watching football when the weather's warm, but a crisp fall afternoon, say mid-October or so. When the sun's out and it's probably 50, 55 degrees out, like that to me is high school football weather. That's fantastic. I enjoy that. Watching the game at Hurd is amazing. Hamilton Wenham puts on a good show. It might not be the greatest tract over there to play on, but
who does Saturday football is Pingree, and I've enjoyed a lot of games.
Yeah, that's right. Pingree does
field out there, the farm they call it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Don't get me wrong. I think Friday night football is fantastic. It's a huge part of the high school sports scene, but I do wish that we had more Saturday options. I really enjoy Saturday football.
And selfishly, it helps for our coverage too, because we can cover more games.
Yeah, I didn't want to say
Friday night, do a few Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, Cooks, Gloucester's had lights now for what, 25 years, probably?
Almost 30.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So you never played a Saturday afternoon game as a player, right?
Nope.
Was it awkward for you or Willie for you when you guys were playing to play a Saturday afternoon game, like throw you off your rhythm or anything like that?
No, it didn't matter. Yeah. It's better for practice. We get an easier day in the middle there.
You get an extra day. So
Yeah, usually Wednesday was like a half day practice wise, so you got a little break there. I mean, I think like too, like you look at the NFL, right, and college football to some degree, but these days with the NFL, like not every team plays at 1 o'clock on Sunday, right? They spread it out so that you can get more attention. You got a special game Thursday, a special game of 2 Mondays, special game Sunday night. Like, the proliferation of the lights, it's like everything in high school football's at 6:30 or 7 Friday night. It doesn't allow attention to be spread out. You never get a spotlight. So that's the part to me that stinks. Like, I think Saturday's okay. I like, being in the sun and watching a sunny game and all that kind of stuff. But I just wish that even if they played Saturday night, like that there was just a way to spread it out so that you could get more of a spotlight on more different games. I mean, I know like it's a tight deadline and, they had to do it. It was a little painful for our newspaper, not to go too inside baseball, but like, we don't technically have the print edition anymore on Saturday and we do on Friday. But those Thursday night games last year, I didn't hate that. It gave us an opportunity to see some teams we wouldn't always see.
Yeah.
It
We get a
spread
few
things
more
out at
this
least
year,
a
I
little
know.
bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would love to see a league say, let's feature one of our games on Thursday night. I think that would be
Sure.
I'm sure there are obstacles to it, but I mean, I think it'd be worth a shot. Just for what Willie's
I was
saying.
during my Fenwick research, I was reading through some weeds there in the MIAA website. There is a proposal to increase the number of officials at football games from 4 to 5, which I got to imagine if that passes, we would see more Thursday and Saturday games because there's a referee shortage already. So if you got to take you got 20 guys, say, if you got to have 4, that's 5 crews. If you got to have 5, that's only 4 crews, right? So if they increase the number of refs, then you're going to have more of a ref shortage and maybe more games on Thursdays and Saturdays. I thought it was interesting that a lot of those games were shifted to Thursday instead of to Saturday, maybe because the referees were already working on Saturday, either Division III college football or NEPSAC games.
That's true. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And I know just from having done the schedule in the paper recently for the upcoming football season, second week of the year, we got 3 Thursday night football games. I think Hamilton Wenham's up at Greater Lawrence. Marblehead, I want to say, is hosting King Philip, big game there. And Swampscott is playing the annual Blydell Bowl against Lynn English. Those are all on Thursday the 14th. And then you look ahead 2 more weeks. Swampscott's at Saugus. I think as you get into October, you have Gloucester's also playing a Thursday night game in Saugus. Is that right, Coops?
I think so. I think it's in Gloucester, yeah, but against
It's in
Saugus.
Gloucester. Okay. And Manchester Essex might be playing at Whittier that same night. And even later on in the regular season, Fenwick is hosting a Friday night game against Fian, is it? I want to say Bishop Fian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there are quite a few of those.
Well, let's put a shout out, a little pump for Thursday night football. Before we go though, Nick, we have like 45, 60 seconds here. I'm going to give it to you. What are you hearing about Marblehead boys soccer this fall, Nick Giannino?
Agree.
I mean,
Well,
what is the buzz over there right now over there?
Well,
What are you hearing?
Elmer Magana, the head coach there, has stacked the schedule, so they're going to be playing some really good teams. He's looking to continue to build that program. Obviously, they've had a lot of success under him, and he's been making it known on Twitter. We all see the tweets, or X now, right? We got to call it X now.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I've dove into the fall soccer scene just yet. I got a couple more weeks to focus on the golf right now, but Marblehead's going to be playing some good programs, so we'll see how they do.
I only did that so we could get a retweet from him, on this podcast. That's all. That's the only reason I did this, So
Love it.
But we are thinking of them. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, we'll stop. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.